In the frozen shadows of northern Europe, where the jagged fjords carve the land and icy winds howl across endless forests, a legend was born, a saga of fierce warriors, masterful seafarers, and relentless explorers. This is the story of the Vikings. But where did these fearless warriors come from? What forged their unyielding spirit? Welcome to the birth of legends, the untold origins of the Vikings. The Viking Age emerged from the heart of Scandinavia, modern-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, in the late 700s CE. This was a land divided into small, fierce kingdoms. Norway's rugged mountains and deep fjords shaped isolated communities, while Denmark's strong chieftains looked beyond their shores for glory and riches. To the east, Sweden's rivers connected distant trade routes, pulling the Norse into a wider world yet to be fully discovered. Viking society was a tightly woven tapestry of power and duty. At the apex stood the Jarls, noble chieftains wielding wealth and command, their halls echoing with the loyalty of warriors. Below them, the carls, the free men, worked the land, crafted goods, and traded far and wide, forming the backbone of Norse life. And beneath them, the thralls, enslaved souls toiling in fields and homes, bound to their masters by force or fate. But the land that nurtured these people was harsh and unforgiving. The medieval warm period granted fertile fields and more harvests, swelling populations across Scandinavia. Yet the rugged terrain and scarce arable land could barely sustain this rising tide of Norsemen. Young sons born into a world where inheritance favored the eldest found themselves landless and desperate for new horizons. Into this crucible of challenge and ambition came a marvel of technology, the longship. Crafted with overlapping planks and iron rivets, these ships were wonders of the sea, swift, flexible, and shallow enough to glide up rivers or strike like lightning at coastal villages. With sails billowing and oars cutting through the waves, Vikings mastered the oceans as no others could, turning their homes into launching pads for adventure and conquest. Driven by the squeeze of population, the lure of wealth, and bolstered by their unmatched shipbuilding skills, the Vikings burst forth into a world unprepared for their thunderous arrival. Their first dark raids struck like a tempest, sudden, brutal, and devastating. The sacred monastery of Lindisfarne in 793 CE felt their wrath, a chilling signal that the Viking Age had begun. This was no mere raid, it was the birth of a saga that would echo through time. From the icy fjords to distant shores, the Vikings carved their legend, shaping history with blood, iron, and fire. Join us as we sail deeper into their world, unveiling the untold tales of conquest, culture, and courage that made the Vikings immortal. The raid on Lindisfarne in 793 CE was not just an attack, it was a horrifying explosion of raw barbarian fury that shattered the calm of medieval Europe, marking the ruthless dawn of the Viking Age. This peaceful monastery, perched on a tiny island off the Northumbrian coast, was a symbol of Christian piety and sanctuary. But in the blink of an eye, it became the stage for a devastating assault. Fierce warriors arrived out of nowhere, wielding weapons, fire, and terror, pillaging treasures and slaughtering monks. The news spread like wildfire, and the world recoiled in shock and disbelief. The Vikings had arrived, and their fury would not be ignored. These early raids had a brutal elegance to them. They were swift, lightning-fast attacks that struck without warning. Vikings targeted coastal monasteries and settlements, places brimming with wealth but poorly defended. Their tactics were built on surprise and speed. They would sail in under the cover of dawn, sweep through the vulnerable villages, seize gold, slaves, and sacred relics, and vanish before any meaningful resistance could be mounted. These raids were not random acts of chaos. They were calculated strikes of terror, designed to maximize loot and leave a lasting impression of fear. What drove these fierce warriors to such savage acts? Beyond the lust for gold and spoil, deeper forces were at work. Scandinavia faced growing populations, limited farmland, and internal power struggles that left many young warriors without land or status. For these restless souls, raiding was a means of survival. a chance to carve out wealth, power, and new worlds beyond their rugged homelands. Ambitious chieftains saw the raids as a way to build their fame and expand influence, turning warbands into dynasties. Central to their dominance was the legendary Viking ship, the Longship. Sleek, fast, and nearly unsinkable, these vessels were masterpieces of naval engineering. They could slice through the roughest seas or glide silently up shallow rivers, allowing Vikings to strike deep into enemy territory where no other army could reach. Their warriors, clad in leather and iron, were masters of hand-to-hand combat, feared for their ferocity and skill. The ripples of these raids crashed fiercely upon the shores of Europe. The destruction of sacred Christian sites like Lindisfarne sent waves of fear and uproar through the continent. Kings and bishops scrambled to protect their lands, build defenses, and negotiate with these unpredictable marauders, sometimes paying vast sums in tribute to avoid destruction. These raids disrupted trade, fractured political alliances, and forced Europe to rethink its defenses and diplomacy. But these terrifying assaults were just the beginning. As the Viking saga unfolded, these raiders of the North Sea would evolve, transforming from feared marauders to settlers, traders, and rulers who reshaped the medieval world forever. The barbarian fury had been unleashed, and Europe would never forget the first thunderous warnings that echoed from the Viking longships on the horizon. The Viking expansion into Western Europe was nothing short of an empire forged in blood and gold. From the rugged shores of Scandinavia, these fierce warriors and cunning traders set their sights on Britain, Ireland, and Normandy, transforming these lands through conquest and settlement. Their influence carved out new kingdoms and vibrant trading centers that thrived on the wealth and power the Vikings relentlessly pursued. In Britain, the Vikings didn't just raid, they took and held land. The capture of York in 866 CE turned this ancient city into a powerful Viking kingdom, a hub of commerce and military might known as Jorvik. Across the sea in Ireland, Viking warlords founded Dublin, turning it into a bustling trade nexus that connected Scandinavia, the British Isles, and continental Europe. These cities were more than just strongholds. They were symbols of Viking ambition, wealth, and cultural fusion. The Vikings' military prowess was ruthless and strategic. Their battles and sieges showcased a blend of brute force and tactical intelligence. The Great Heathen Army, a formidable coalition of warriors led by legendary figures like Ivor the Boneless, systematically defeated English kingdoms, relying on superior mobility, shock tactics, and unyielding ferocity. Their siege of Paris in 885 to 886 demonstrated their ability to strike deep into enemy territory, wielding terrifying power on land and sea. Yet their military strategies were not just about bloodshed. They combined intimidation with diplomacy when advantageous, often negotiating tribute to secure their gains. These fierce warriors were also shrewd traders. The Vikings were masters of both war and commerce, a dual identity that fueled their rise. Their settlements became bustling markets where furs, silver, spices, and slaves exchanged hands, linking distant cultures through vibrant trade networks. This integration forged unprecedented cultural exchanges, where Norse customs blended with local traditions, influencing language, law, and art across Europe. The legacy of the Vikings' conquest reverberates through medieval Europe. Their ambition reshaped political boundaries, their brutality instilled fear, but their role as traders and settlers planted seeds of cultural transformation. The empire they built on blood and gold was not just a chapter of destruction, it was the foundation of a new medieval world, shaped forever by the indomitable spirit and relentless drive of the Vikings. The Viking spirit was not content with the shores of Europe. Beyond the horizon, they sought new worlds, vast, uncharted, and full of promise. Their extraordinary voyages westward rewrote the maps of medieval history and sealed their legacy as the ultimate explorers of the Atlantic. It began with Iceland, discovered around 860 CE, where daring Norse settlers braved the unknown to claim a frozen island of fire and ice. By 874 CE, thousands had made the perilous journey to establish settlements, with Reykjavik rising as a beacon of Viking life in the North Atlantic. Iceland was more than a refuge. It was a launching point for even greater adventures. From Iceland, the bold sailed further to Greenland, discovered by Eric the Red around 982 CE after his exile. Despite its harsh and unforgiving climate, Eric's settlements thrived during the medieval warm period, with two main colonies taking root. These settlements exemplified Viking resilience and vision, pushing the boundaries of known civilization far beyond Scandinavia's fjords. But the greatest leap was yet to come, a voyage that would etch the Vikings into the annals of epic discovery. Around the year 1000 CE, Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, embarked on a daring expedition that carried him across the treacherous Atlantic Ocean to the lands of Vinland, what we now recognize as parts of modern-day North America. This remarkable journey occurred nearly 500 years before Columbus, making the Vikings the first Europeans to set foot on the continent. These transoceanic voyages were filled with danger and wonder. Against towering waves, unpredictable weather, and unknown coasts, the Vikings navigated with unparalleled skill. They faced hostile indigenous peoples, the Skrælings of Norse sagas, and struggled to establish footholds in the New World. Archaeological finds at Lanceau Meadows in Newfoundland confirm Norse presence and hint at the fleeting settlements that embodied Viking ambition and persistence. The significance of these explorations cannot be overstated. In a medieval world bound by the limits of land and sea, the Vikings cast aside fear and convention to chart new frontiers. Their discoveries challenged the boundaries of the known world and expanded the horizons of possibility. Through these epic journeys, they extended their influence far beyond Europe, planting seeds of cultural exchange and inspiring generations of explorers to come. The saga of Viking exploration is one of courage, vision, and relentless drive, a testament to the human spirit's yearning to go beyond the edge of the map and into the vast mysteries that lie beyond the horizon. The Viking Age was not just a saga of conquest and survival. It was a transformative chapter that reshaped the cultural and societal landscapes of medieval Europe. As the Vikings expanded across continents, they didn't merely impose their will, they forged new identities through the blending of Norse and local traditions, forever altering the fabric of the lands they touched. Their arrival sparked profound changes, not least in religion. The fierce pagan Vikings, once worshippers of Odin and Thor, eventually faced the overwhelming tide of Christianity sweeping through Europe. This transition was tumultuous and complex, marked by conflict, negotiation, and gradual conversion. Kings and chieftains embraced the new faith, sometimes for political advantage, sometimes from genuine belief, triggering centuries of religious transformation that intertwined old and new. Viking art, mythology, and traditions left a deep imprint that echoed through medieval culture. Their intricate carvings, runic inscriptions, and epic tales of gods and heroes infused the region with a vibrant narrative richness. Symbols like Thor's hammer and stories of the All-Father Odin mingled with Christian iconography, creating a unique cultural tapestry that reflected both resistance and adaptation. Socially, Viking expansion led to dramatic shifts. Integrations into existing kingdoms saw Norse warriors becoming nobles, traders merging with local merchants, and once isolated communities blending through marriage and governance. The rigid Viking social structure evolved as these settlers embraced new roles and identities, shaping emerging medieval societies. The enduring legacy of the Vikings endures in language and place names, words and towns carrying the Norse imprint of a people who journeyed far. English, Irish, and French dialects absorbed Old Norse elements, while cities like York, Dublin, and Rouen stand as living monuments to Viking heritage. In the grand tapestry of history, the Vikings transformed from feared raiders into foundational architects of a new European order, their shattered world rebuilt through cultural fusion and enduring legacy. Their story is not just one of conquest, but a profound and lasting influence that continues to resonate today. The Viking Age, once a relentless tide of conquest and discovery, ultimately met its end through a complex web of political, religious, and military shifts. As emerging European kingdoms consolidated power, the fearsome Viking raids diminished, replaced by integration into the evolving tapestry of medieval Europe. The final chapter is a dramatic farewell to the giants of the north, but their legacy remains immortal. The decline of the Viking Age was driven by the gradual unification of European states. Kings of England, France, and the Holy Roman Empire forged stronger armies and defenses, making Viking raids increasingly difficult and costly. Major battles, like the Battle of Shielen in 986 CE, marked the waning of Viking dominance, as they faced resilient opposition and more organized resistance. At the same time, Christianity's influence transformed Viking society. King Olaf Tryggvason's and later Olaf II's campaigns converted Norse pagans en masse, dissolving old beliefs and replacing them with Christian doctrine. This religious shift diminished the cultural and spiritual motivations behind raiding, integrating Vikings into the broader Christian world, and aligning them with the new European order. Throughout this period, key events signaled the fading of Viking power: sieges, and diplomatic treaties that ended the era of unchallenged sea rovers. By the early 11th century, the once unstoppable Viking fleets had become largely civilians, traders, and settlers. Their fierce raids were replaced by political alliances and integration, marking the quiet conclusion of their epoch. Yet their influence endures. The Vikings left an indelible mark on culture, language, and mythology. Modern fascination with Norse legends, the heroic sagas, and the image of the Viking warrior all stem from their enduring legacy. They are immortalized in tales of gods and heroes, in place names, in the roots of modern Scandinavian identity, and in the global popular imagination. The saga of the Vikings concludes, but their legends continue to echo through history. They are remembered, not just as ruthless raiders, but as pioneers of exploration, builders of culture, and shapers of the medieval world's future. Their story is the ultimate epic, a testament to human resilience, ambition, and the eternal quest to leave a mark on the world.